Hi guys, it's Debbie with Debbie J's Crafting Corner. Today's card will be using another of the new Susan's Garden Club die set from Spellbinders. The set I'm using today is the Geranium and Antique Bucket die set. I've already put together one project using the Oriental Lily set. You can see that video up here. So I'm excited to try out another flower. This is the Geranium and Antique Wooden Bucket die set from Spellbinders. This is another of those dies that's part of the Susan's Garden Club, and it has this nice bucket here. I'm thinking you could probably do something with pattern paper, a wood grain, and that would be incredible, or use your inks. And then we've got the pieces to create your flowers and your petals, and of course the stamens and all. This is going to be so much fun. It's a little more in-depth than the lily one did, but the lilies worked out so well. I'm really excited to try this one out. So I'm going to start off with just raiding my scrap bin to see what kind of colors I want to try to use with this. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my geraniums reds. So I'm just going to grab out this pack and I'll put it back after I'm done. So first thing I'm going to do is just cut out all of my pieces. I'm cutting the bucket out of some brown, the handle out of some silver, and my flowers I'm going to cut out of some reds. Also all of those leaves and the little stem I'm going to cut out of some green cardstock. So I've got everything, I think, cut out. I've got my bucket with the little handle. I cut out two of the handle arm because it's the little wood piece that's going to go on there. One's in silver and one's in white, and this is just to give it a little bit more strength because that is kind of thin. And then I've got all of my flowers. The way that it was explained is with this die you need to cut it out twice. It has a number right there, 2x on the die, so you know. So you cut it out twice, and that's going to create a bunch of flowers. It's going to be about 6 of those, so it's like 3 and 3. We've got the 2 petal and the 3 petal, and each of the little flowers is going to be basically 5 because we're going to assemble that together. We've got a couple of little twigs here that are so that you can put basically put some little buds on there. So it's a 6 bud, like this is going to be a 6 bunch. This is a 6 bud, and these are the leaves. That was something I wasn't sure what it was and had to go back through the video a couple of times to find the part where she talked about it. But this is the leaves that goes over your little buds, and what we're going to use is some Nuvo drops to fill in that. So that's going to be the first part we're going to work on. Then we've got some different leaves. These are the hydrangea leaves, and the die cuts out 2 at a time, and it says on here to cut out 3, so I guessed right because I didn't actually read that. And then we've got this part here that basically creates a little mound on your card for you to be able to position everything. And I went ahead and cut it out 3 times because I don't know how many times I'm going to use it, but we'll see. So that's all of the pieces and the dies that go with them. These are all the pieces that I just cut out from that die. Now I'm going to go ahead and get started on the little bud twigs and the bucket. I'm adding a little ink to the edges of most of these die cuts. These pieces are the little stems, so I'm adding a little green to that to give them a little bit more depth. Then I'm going to put some autumn red Nuvo drops on those little tips to be the little buds for those flowers. Then I'll set those aside to dry while I do all the rest. I'm going to just drag some walnut stain ink across the front of my bucket to bring out all of those little embossed lines that came from the die. It's going to make it look a little bit more like wood. Most of this is going to be covered up, so it's not going to really matter that much, but it will add a little bit more realism to the finished project. Next, I'll go ahead and finish assembling my bucket. I'm adding the little wooden handle to the metal piece faux metal piece of my bucket handle, and then I'm going to put that on the front of my bucket. I decided I wanted to just hang down so you'll be able to see a little bit of it. If I had the handle above the bucket, I might not be able to see any of it behind all of those flowers. Next, I'll put that bucket on the front of a card base. So I'm using some little foam squares and putting those on the back of the bucket and then trying to curve it a little bit because I want it to pop a little bit. And then I'm going to put it on the front of my card. For the card front, I decided to just run a piece of pattern paper through an embossing folder and then add a little ink. I don't feel that the background really matters all that much because the focal point is going to be all of those flowers that are going to be in this bucket. Next, I'm going to work on these leaves. First part of that, I'm going to add a bunch of ink to the edges and across some of the front. There are some embossed lines that I'll need to be able to see for the next step. So this piece here, these little guys, they create kind of a mound for your flowers to pop up on. So I'm just adding some glue to the edges of that and kind of propping them up on top of each other. So now I'm going to start working on one of these little leaves. Now there are some embossed lines that the die automatically put on there, but we're going to want to add a little bit more to that. So first we're going to go over it with some type of a tool, an embossing tool, over each of those lines so that after you do it on one side, you'll be able to see it on the other. I've mentioned before that there is a kit of all of the tools over on Spellbinders. I don't have the kit, so I'm just using what I have. I have a feeling I may need to invest in that though if I want to do many more of these, because I think those tools would work a lot better. So first I'm just going over those embossed lines, and then I'm going to flip the little leaf over and do the same thing on the other side. Next, we need to shape the edges of the leaves. I'm using my medium ball stylus to do this. Next, you'll take your tweezers and kind of curl the edges back, back away from the front. The reason that you're doing this is that these leaves tend to be kind of, curly. Then you take your small ball stylus and then just press down in the center of it so that it kind of makes the leaves form a little bit of a cup. Now I'm going to go ahead and put those little leaves in. Now I am kind of flying by the seat of my pants as usual because I've never done one like this before, so I don't know for sure if I'm putting anything in the right position or not. I didn't want it to be too clustered around any specific area because I want to have plenty of room for all of my flowers to show. Speaking of flowers, I'm going to go ahead and get started on those. I'm using some Candied Apple Distress ink, just like I've been using with everything else. I'm going with the inks. I'm just adding a little bit of concentrated color in the center of those flowers, where I'm in the center of the petals where they join. So we've got the 3-petal and the 2-petal, and so I'm just putting some of that. I get better, believe me. I'm putting some of that Candied Apple Red in the middle of that, so it's going to look like there's just a little bit more depth of color, and I'm going to do that with all of the petals. Next, we're going to shape the petals. Now, I'm just using my small ball stylus. I think it was a small ball. That might have been the medium one. And then I'm just kind of pulling from the edge to give the end of it a little bit of a curl shape. You always want to go from the outside edge in, especially when you've got that little narrow piece of cardstock that is holding everything together. Next, what we're going to do with this is we're going to take some tweezers and line it up with one of the petals and fold that over. And then we're going to take our tweezers and fold the tips of the petals back. So I'm going to do that one again. I'm going to show you this a couple of times so you get it. So we're going to do that on every one of our petals. So we put the tweezers on there, fold it around to kind of give that little narrow end, and then we're going to fold the ends over the tweezers. And that's on each of the petals. Next, we're going to take our small ball stylus and cup each of those petal groupings. Next, I'm going to add some more of these little flowers to the bucket. I did go ahead and get quite a few of those done, and then realized I didn't cut out quite enough of my petals. So I went back and cut out some more. So the way that you put these down is you first put down the piece that's got 2 petals, and you kind of want to have it showing kind of like a V shape with the petals facing headed up and pointed up. Then you put the other 3 piece down with one of the petals right in the center of those 2, and it should give you a 5 petal grouping. Looking back now though, I'm thinking that it might have been easier for me to assemble all of my flowers before putting them on the bucket. So I'll try that next time. Next, I'm going to work a little bit more on those little stems that have all those little blooms. There were also some little tiny green, almost like tiny leaves, I think that's actually what they are, that go with those stems. So you basically just put it covering part of the red, so it looks like there is a leaf wrapped around that little bud that hasn't quite bloomed yet. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all of those on. They're just a bunch of little pieces. I'm just getting my jewel picker and gluing those on with my art glitter glue, and then I can just tuck them in amongst the flowers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope my card inspires you to create some awesome projects, and I would love to see what you create. So come join us in my Facebook group, Crafting with Debbie, and show us your creations. There's a link in the description box below. Here are some other videos that I know you'll enjoy. Thanks again, and remember, if I can make it, you can too.